namaste to each and every one of you. Hope you guys have been living your best life, and if you haven't, then we have many, at least as long as we're alive, opportunities to do so. I don't say that it's easy, and I don't say that it'll come at no price. In fact, quite the opposite. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to cost you everything. If you're not interested in buying that, then there's probably, not much help. But in the course of all of this, in the course of my journey, which is really kind of where Source has put me, is to share my journey with people that may be on the same journey. Now, it won't resonate, I can tell you that, with you if you're not on the journey that I'm on. You'll be disinterested, you won't understand anything, you won't have consciousness about it. And if that's the case, then it's okay just to be honest and admit that you're walking in some other timeline. On the other side, it doesn't, for me, have anything to do with anything, because I'm going to continue to walk my timeline. So here's the reality of it. We've been lied to, and we've been lied to, and then we've been lied to. And I started out as a Christian and believed that was the truth. And during the course of 20 plus years of pastoring and studying the Bible, I found out that there seems to be some discrepancies that I can't make sense of. And I realize now that Source put me there so that I would come to that fate, that time of revelation that what is being taught is not the truth. And if you haven't had it, then I'm sorrowful for you. If you have had it and you haven't been able to make sense of it, then wonderful, because Source is speaking to you. So the reality of all of this is that we are being bombarded on so many levels, and it's almost even worse now, of course, in the ancient, when I say that, that's not really fair. In the older days, in the 1800s and that kind of stuff, Christianity kind of had free rule to do to people whatever they wanted to do. And of course that dates all the way back to Rome and the turn of the century, and actually before. And so in searching for truth, you often find pieces, but you often find that there is much that isn't truth, and hopefully that will motivate you to do more. I don't say that it does for many people, and for many people it does just the opposite. They quit. And but I'm not one of those, and never have been and never will be. And not only that, I know I have a calling which trumps everybody. So the reality of it is as we go back further, we begin to make sense and make pieces, and we begin to see the cycles. Humans were created by Anki, and Anki put in us the ability to discern, or some humans, and that's something that at some point, hopefully relatively close, I'm gonna delve into, because for some of you it's going to be really hard to find out that there are 6 different classes of humans, and some of them will never possess the power to do certain things, no matter how much. Well, they won't want to, but they wouldn't be able to even if they did. And so, I shared with you guys about Enoch, and I have to be honest, the more that I read Enoch last Saturday, the less I could stomach reading it. It's just another Christian rewrite. It happened before the Christianity organized did, but in the scheme of things, it's just another Christian rewrite. And so I don't have any I've read enough rewrites. I'm kind of done, I guess, at that level if the rewrites don't line up with the ancient. So, it's funny, because in the Bible we find little bits of truth, like it says that we are to rebuild the ancient paths, and that we are to rebuild redig the wells of Abraham, and yet not one person that I've ever met even has enough consciousness to stop and ask themselves who and what was Abraham, although there is zero information, even in Judaism, that there was an Abraham other than a statement. And so there's no proof. Most don't believe he ever existed, and there's a good possibility that is the truth. But the principles that were tied up as Abraham are very profound, no matter who they might have been attributed to. Maybe you could have called him Joe, and the principles would have still been just as valuable. Historically true, maybe not, but So part of my journey has been to find things that are historically provable and yet at the same time bear truth in them. And so that's the piece that I've embarked on. I showed you guys, took you through initially when I began to, the perception began to change. And for those, maybe there's someone out there who has experienced this, my perception, it's almost weekly that I see situations, people, and things, and it's as if Source turns a new filter on, and all of a sudden things that I never saw are exposed. They're very clear. And that's really hard to deal with sometimes because not all of it's good. And so the reality is to be able to see is the greatest gift that Source gives us, but being able to see has the highest requirement that there is. So what you do with it then, you become responsible for. And so for those of you who maybe you're looking for Christian light and an easy way to get to heaven, I don't have it and I won't ever have it for you because it never was the journey in the first place. The journey in the first place is a return to consciousness. And we are in this nation running as fast as we can the opposite direction. And so it's very difficult to tell people that are running from consciousness and truth what consciousness is and truth is, and get them to in any way relate to it past a passing thought. And so I've found that to be a really difficult piece. So today I feel like I'm blessed. I'm going to share initially a piece with you. It's not very long, might not take 10 or 15 minutes. And the title that they gave to this cuneiform tablet, an ancient tablet that was written, is the Eridu Genesis. For those of you who may not know anything about any of this, Eridu was the first organized city that existed in history as we know it. There were others that the Sumerian wrote of, but the city of Enki, who is also the creator of humans, Eridu was his city. He was the god of it. And so it's quite important if you understand, and I can in 5 minutes or even 50 minutes or even 50 years explain all that is available to validate every word that I'm going to say today. So if you doubt, then you just doubt. Go research it and find out for yourself, which is really the journey that I think at many levels most won't do, and is really the only place where you ever gain anything. Because if you're not authentic enough for this to be important, then you're really not very authentic at all. And so that isn't a slam, that isn't a negative word against. There's just no other way to get it than to go research. And that means you have to take away your time. That means it has to be a priority. And if it's not a priority, then it's not authentic. So the Genesis, the Eridu Genesis, I wanted to say a couple other things about this. The Eridu Genesis that I'm gonna read to you is actually slightly less than a third of what the actual document is, but you also have to understand that this document is over 5,000 years old. That's significant that the source gave us this much of it. A piece of it, for those that are seeking consciousness and paid attention when we went through the Atrahasis, which is the Akkadian version of this, which has slightly less insight, although whoever wrote it probably had access to this whole document. It was a downsizing, if you would. And there's several things that come out because we live in a land where everybody is brainwashed into believing what the journey is. Many of you still think that the journey is for you to become like Jesus and go pray for everybody and heal the dead and save and heal the sick and save the dead. And in reality, that never has been part of anything. The journey is that you come to consciousness inside of yourself. And if you do that, you'll fulfill more than you could ever dream of. If you don't do that, you'll live your wasted life and come back again with another wasted life. So I guess that really is depending on what it is that you're seeking for. So, Eridu Genesis. Sister Mariana has been so kind, as always, to put links in the bottom. It's easy to pull up on your cell phone. You put Eridu Genesis. And I'm reading out of the version that is from an organization that is dealing with Sumerian texts, and it's called omnica.org. And so, let's see what it is. There will be some pieces that are added in that you wouldn't have picked up in the Atrahasis. And as I said, it's very small compared to what it should be. But the next place, this is all done for a purpose and a reason. And all of them tied together give us, at this point in history, the most complete line that we non-scholars can access. A lot of the stuff that I talk about in Sumerian texts are not available to people. They will not publish them because they know how destructive what was really the truth is going to be to society. When you find out that you've not only been lied to, there's very little in your life that is even real. And that scientists know that, scholars know that. They're constantly manipulating people into ignorance. Because if you knew the price you were going to pay for your behavior, you would either then intentionally do that to yourself, or you would intentionally make sure that doesn't happen. And that is exactly what Christianity doesn't want you to know. So it is a partial English translation of a Sumerian creation flood myth. Okay? When we go to the Enuma Elish, which is the next document that I want to share after we finish this, the Enuma Elish is written later, but you'll find that it actually, part of it is written off of what the Babylonian king could get from scholars and priests of the time, and actually predates Sumerian completely. In fact, it actually is at the beginning of the 240,000 years that the Anunnakis ruled this earth. So now we're talking the possibility that pieces of the Enuma Elish are over very close to 400,000 years old, and they were writing text at that time. So line there, as I said, there's going to be many lines. If you download the thing and read it, they have that designated that there's 35 lines missing here, or there are 200 lines missing here. I'm sorry, but that's just the way that it happens when clay tablets are 5,000 years old and they have to survive. I mean, my God, the rejoicing should be that we get to read this. And so, line 1 through 6, Nintar was paying attention. Let me bethink myself of my humankind, all forgotten as they are, and mindful of mine. Nintar's creatures, let me bring them back, and let me lead the people back from their trails. So you get without looking at the whole picture, it gets difficult. There have at least for a long time been humanoids, but what is manifested as what is so-called Homo sapiens, many people like Gregg, Braden, and other people who are astrophysicists are telling people, just exactly as I am, that there was a time when a Homo sapien per se, the creation that we are, appeared. Prior to that, it did not exist. It's not a 30,000 year journey. We do have some Neanderthal in us. I think they say about 1 to 2% is in every human is Neanderthal. So there were large quantities of Neanderthal that did crossbreed with Homo sapiens. But we were a created being that was put in place. That's pretty crazy in and of itself. And so she simply says, I begin to ponder on my people, my creatures, and please, the words they use are correct for their observation, their perception of the world. To them, you are a creature. To the Anunnakis that are coming back very shortly, you also will be a creature. You will return to the place that humans were created at 5,000 plus years ago. And so, humankind, all forgotten as they are and mindful of mind. So she's going, I'm sitting here smoking a joint thinking about my humans. Creatures, let me bring them back. Let me lead the people back from their trails. If you know anything about this, they were put here. Humans were created to work. That's why they're actually, in reality, retirement and old age is a concoction of the human mind. It never was created in you. That's why people often that are hard workers and that are pure spirit, when they quit working, they die, because their use has come to an end. And so, may they come and build cities and cult places. So all of these amazing temples in Eridu, when they dug in Eridu, they dug down 18 levels of temples that were to within minutes of angle, exactly perfect with the alignment of the stars, 18 different times. Each temple was built more grand, but it was exactly built on the exact same timeline. Folks, you can't do that today. Those people were doing it 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago. And so, that I may cool myself in their shade. May they lay the bricks for the cult cities in pure spots. And since most of you don't understand that there are ley lines that exist on this earth, some of that is starting to come out with things like the pyramids. It's starting to come out with even the things that are going on at the Skinwalker Ranch, and even the things that are going on in the other side of Anita Valley and the Frog Ranch. All of those are on perfect ley lines, and it's all tied with crystals, which what you might not understand is that they had worldwide electricity tens of thousands of years ago. Nikola Tesla was simply recovering the old pathways. He was a very big proponent of Sumerian writing. One of the greatest minds that ever existed on the face of this earth that we know of. And so, may they come and build cities and cult places, that I may cool myself in their shade. May they lay the bricks for the cult cities in pure spots, and may they found places for divination in pure spots. Well, see, their concept of divination and your concept of spirituality in reality are exactly the same thing. When you pray to God, when you go to a Pentecostal church and those people are running around babbling, what they are doing is doing an incantation to a God that they know nothing about. In fact, Anki talks about that. He says these stupid freaking humans, they keep praying to the wrong gods thinking something's going to happen for them. How many of you prayed and never saw anything happen? You have no knowledge of truth. And so, and divination in pure spots. She gave directions for purification and cries for quarter. The things that cool divine wrath, perfected divine service, and the august offices said to the surrounding regions, let me institute peace here. Okay, so she called all of her people back. It's real funny that we're sitting here today on the 1st of August, and there was a whole series of spiritual significant things that went on in August. And so I kind of looked at that and I said, Source, I think that you're trying to you're trying to reach to those people that haven't maybe opened their minds or maybe have, and yet they're just at the beginning piece of that journey of recognizing that they are. See, everyone in the spirit world is talking about this thing of remembering, but none of them know what the hell you're supposed to remember. I listen to it I don't anymore, but I used to listen to it and person after person and channel after channel and things after things, and I go back and I read the Sumerian stuff, and that was old news 5,000 years ago. It's not new. There's nothing new that's coming to us. In fact, what it is it is the false front edge of the real that is in the journey to get here now. And so that the archons are feeding to people because they'll buy it and mindlessly just believe it. And so may they lay the bricks for the cult cities in pure spots. May they found places for divination in pure spots. And I'm sure none of you, especially those of you who grew up with a bunch of tongue-talking Pentecostals, none of you ever realized that you were divining, that you were doing witchcraft to your monotheistic fake God. No concept of reality for any of us, but a whole lot of fake going on. And so she gave directions for purification. Where did the purification come? Can I tell you, dear one, before it's over with, you will find out that baptism was 10,000 years before Yeshua ever walked the face of this earth. It's old. It's not new. It's never been new. It wasn't new to him. It was old to him. Purification, the way for us to be purified. And cries for quarter, the things that cool divine wrath. Perfected divine service, what really is the true thing. Has nothing to do with you speaking in tongues, has nothing to do with you praying to a God that you know nothing about, that doesn't even exist. It has to do with your behavior. That's all that matters. And the perfected divine service and the august offices said to the surrounding regions, let me institute peace there. When On, the sky god, Enlil, the middle god, and Anki, the Abzu god, and then her saga fashioned the dark-headed people, just so you know, if you hear terms dark-headed, that's always talking about the Sumerians. Now, I've been watching stuff about the American Indians for a long time, and I do think it's quite a strange trait. I don't say that this is a fact, but it is a hunch that I have, that the American Indians in reality are in some way very, very, very tightly connected to the Sumerians. They are the only people on this earth that by nature have pure black hair. There's a reason why the Sumerians called themselves the black-haired people or the dark-haired people. And so they fashioned the dark-headed people. They had made the small animals that come from the earth in abundance, and had let there be, as befits it, gazelles and wild donkeys and four-footed beasts in the desert. Column 2, line 1 through 3 is missing. Line 4 and 7 says, and let me have him advise. Let me have him oversee their labor. So we missed the piece about the person that she called to come, and then she was going to put them over. Okay, put this person over humans. And let me have him advise. Let me have him oversee their labor. So whoever this was an overseer of the work that humans were required to do, that you were created to do, that it was your purpose for living. Your purpose was not to find God. Your purpose was to work. And you had no other purpose than that, according to the original design. Now, Anki did modify that as you go through the years. So if you take that, but inherently I still believe in each and every one of us, is the need, and we will never be fulfilled. That's why we read in some documents a few weeks ago that laziness has no place in spirituality, because laziness is a rebellion against the inner nature that we have. That's why you see honorable people. What do? Honorable people are always hard workers. They're always revered. They're always honored. Things work for them. All of those kind of things. You guys have watched it a million times. Most of you may have been those things. But the reality of it is that there is an inherent reason 5,000 years down the road why most humans have that instinct in them. Now, there's something that's going on in society now that is causing that to diminish. Many of you've heard it, bosses who can't hire people and the people they hire won't work and yada, 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 yada. So I'm not quite sure how that's all going to work into the cosmology, but I will tell you that the source will provide the ancient information to understand why that is like it is. And so, and let me have him advise, let me have him oversee their labor, and let him teach the nation to follow unerringly like cattle. When the royal scepter was coming down from heaven, the august crown and the royal throne being already down from heaven, he, in other words, the king, regularly performed to perfection the august divine services and offices, laid the bricks of those cities in pure spots. They were named by name in allotted half bushel baskets. Okay? For those of you who may not understand, there were 7 cities. Eridu was one of them. The others were spread all over, and each in its time and season was overseen by an Anunnaki king. The royal scepter is the king. If you read these ancient texts, kingship never began on earth. Kingship came to this earth from the sky. And was coming down from heaven. So when you see that kingship was coming down from heaven, the august crown and the royal throne being already down here from heaven. So there was creation that was going on of creating this throne and all of this infrastructure before Source and the universe ever brought kingship to the earth. But to be sure, what we know as kingship is nothing but a metaphor for the kingship that was originally. There in the king's list, there are 241,000 years, 8 kings that ruled this earth for 240,000 years before the Sumerians even existed. It's really hard when you have that stuff hard written. There's no questioning, although there are plenty of people that do, but there's no way a king lived 38,000 years. Well, you were willing to believe that Methuselah lived 900. You know, that's one of the things that's coming from Christianity. I read all of this stuff, and it's so ludicrous and so magical and so, wow, he lived 900 years. Adam lived 900 years. And you buy that stuff hook, line, and sinker, but somebody brings you truth, and you fight it like nobody's business. Why is it so unfathomable, since we're told in many documents that there were many things a long time before there ever was anything that we know anything about? Why is it so difficult to believe that maybe the picture that we've been given, as it is right now, if Earth was removed from this cosmos, there would be little to no effect to anything else? If it would just cease to exist. And so, the royal throne being already down from heaven, he, the king, regularly performed to perfection the august divine services. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to find out what this august divine services is, because I believe that there is some significant purpose in this, and me being here and the things Source has been saying and doing, this is not accidental. Maybe it is for y'all, but it's not for me. And that's okay. It can not be for you and be for me and still be okay. And so regularly performed to perfection the august divine services and offices, laid the bricks of those cities in pure spots. They were named by name and allotted half bushel baskets. Eridu is the first of those names. Just so you know, we've been told, I've listened to scholars write and say how these were brain dead morons that couldn't do anything, and they were just a bunch of Neanderthal type people. And yet the city of Eridu, they have unearthed enough of it archaeologically to come to the consensus that Eridu supported 80,000 people 7,000 years ago. You won't get many, to be honest, and tell you that, but that is what archaeology has found. It was huge. Had temples that were 7 layers high. Just crazy stuff. Nobody's going to tell you about it. They laugh at you. They want you to stay deaf, dumb, and ignorant. And so, regularly performed to perfection these divine august services and offices, and laid the bricks of their cities in pure spots. So none of these cities were built in just some place. They were divine spots, and that's why they remained for 18. And that 18 layers could have been 150,000 years. So they were named by name, Eridu, and all of the others, and allotted a half bushel basket. The firstling of those cities, Eridu, she gave to the leader, Nudamud. The second, Babtabira, she gave to the prince of the sacred run. The third, Larak, which they have unearthed as well. Actually, I think they've unearthed all of these, as well as some others that were more ancient as far as worship places, as in Gobekli Tepe. And she gave to Pelbisag the fourth, which is Sapar. And then she gave to the Gallant, Utu. The fifth, Sherapak, she gave to Sud. These cities which had been named by names and been allotted half bushel baskets. Now, it's an obvious thing that's written there. These cities that were named by name. It doesn't say that there weren't other cities. It says these were specific, very important cities. And so, were allotted half bushel baskets. They dredged the canals, which were blocked with purplish wind-borne clay, and they carried water. Their cleaning of the smaller canals established abundant growth. That's what humans were created to do. That's what the Agigi, who were Anunnakis, who were not in an upper class, they were like Australians, is the closest my mind grabs a picture. People from England and other places were sent to Australia as a prison on a continent. And that prison on a continent has had a very long time of massive rebellion and massive negative energy, because all of the people sent there were all not good people. And the Agigi are Anunnakis, but they are that. They were workers. There's an appearance in several documents that these were probably Anunnakis who had done wrong, and they were put here to work as prisoners. Makes absolute sense, because if that is true, then we've duplicated that more than once. And so, that day Nintur wept over her creatures, and holy Inanna was full of grief over their people. But Anki took counsel with his own heart, and Enlil and Anki and Ninhursag had the gods of heaven and earth swear by the names An, who is the sky god, whether you know that or not. Anu is the sky god, the god of the sky. And Enlil, who is the god of the earth. At that time, Ziusudra was king and lustration priest. So, if any of you remember from when we read the Atrahasis, Ziusudra is the one who Anki told, and told his house also that it was to tear itself down and build a ship so that humans would be protected. This Ziusudra is the original Noah thousands of years before there were Jews. Okay? Before there were Hyksos, which are actually who the Jews are, the Hyksos of Egypt. That's why you can't find a Jew in Egypt. And at that time, Ziusudra was king. So we didn't find that in the Atrahasis. We hear about Ziusudra and that he was an honorable man. But now we find out that he was a king, and he also was a priest. And he fashioned being a seer. So now we have another piece of information. I get a picture of this Ziusudra being a guy like was written in the Bible of Samuel. Someone of great power and wisdom and depth and insight. And of course, everybody else listened to his words and they were totally mindless to what he was talking about, I'm quite sure, on many occasions, because that's the way that seers function. And he fashioned, being a seer, a statue of the god of giddiness, inducing ecstasy. So maybe you could see in our society how our society has gone from hard work to laziness and pleasure. I don't know if you guys get on the internet much, but sometimes it would be wise for you to see what's happening in your society around you. The mass majority of women that are 50 years old, there is more than 50% of them that have never been married, never had children, and if you talk to them at 70, all they want to do is travel and have fun. That is the goddess of giddiness. It's all about fun. And they teach that in Christianity. Oh, brother, if it ain't fun, then we're teaching wrongness. Really? I didn't find that in the Bible. I did find that righteousness is what it's about, but you don't like righteousness. You want fun. And you guys bought that and paid tithes and enriched these people with no consciousness of who and what they were teaching you. And so he fashioned this statue of the god of giddiness, inducing ecstasy. So everyone who went around it, they were induced into ecstasy by power, and stood in awe beside it. So now Ziusudra, the king and priest, builds this god of ecstasy, and then he stands and watches what's happening, which is exactly what I just told you. I have a feeling that Ziusudra had a lot of insight about who the people that existed were. And so, as he stood there regularly, day after day, he heard something that was not a dream appearing, conversation, a swearing of oaths by heaven and earth, a confirming, touching of the throats, and the gods bringing their thwarts up to Kior. As Ziusudra stood there beside it, he went on hearing, "Step up to the wall to my left and listen. Let me speak a word to you at the wall, and may you grasp what I say. May you heed my advice. By our hand, a flood will sweep over the cities of the hash bushel baskets." Now, there's some significant things that's going on here that I want to help you. The voice he's hearing is the voice of Anki. The king is hearing the voice of Anki that there is a flood coming. Why? Because he is a seer. Where do seers get their information? They get their information from God. When I say source told me, I'm not questioning, I'm simply sharing, okay, what has been going on. And so he keeps hearing this. Now, the significance is, for us, would be this. It is not correct that the whole earth was flooded at all. What is correct is that that area of those half bushel baskets, which is Mesopotamia, which is the Levant, which is Iran, Iraq, we're fighting right now in Mesopotamia. We had our last fight in Mesopotamia. We destroyed Iraq. Now we are predisposed to destroy Iran. Turkey also falls into that circle. You notice they're in bed now all of a sudden with Vlad. And so by our hand, if you know this is Anki, then you know he's talking about by the Anunnaki's hand, by the power of the Anunnakis, there is a flood coming, Ziusudra, and you need to know about it. He gives instructions in the Atrahasis, and they would be in here if we had the whole document, which is very sad, but I do hope that they find multiple versions and we actually get to read what the whole version reads. But for me, reading this about 10 times, it's still, there's more information than I can grab here. And so, over the cities of the half bushel baskets, not the world, and the country, the decision that mankind is to be destroyed has been made. A verdict, a command by the assembly that cannot be revoked. So Anki is telling Ziusudra a flood is coming and there's nothing I can do to stop it. It cannot be revoked, an order of An, and what An says his will establish. He is the God of sky. And Enlil is not known ever to have been countermanded. So here we have Aki telling this king priest that if An says something, there's never been a time that is known in recorded history where it was not done. See, we don't understand a lot of things. And I'm watching the mindlessness of people that they in their corrupt minds concoct realities that are so fallacious it's not even funny. I talked to a guy that I've worked out with in the past, and he said, sir, I don't know what's happening to our city, but he said people have lost their ability to reason, even reasonably reason. And I just smiled at him because he didn't know that 2 months ago I was talking about reason with y'all. And so that mankind is to be destroyed has been made, a verdict, a command by the assembly, cannot be revoked. An order of An and Enlil is not known ever to have been countermanded. Their kingship, their term has been uprooted. They must bethink themselves of that. Now, what I have to say to you, we're missing some pieces in there, and I'm sure that they would be quite valuable to hear. But if you have the ability to think at all, you certainly can see past the blanks and pick up on the next line. Column 5. All evil winds, all stormy winds gathered into one, and with them the flood was sweeping over the cities of the half-bushel baskets for 7 days and 7 nights. Dear friends, I just gave you the context of the whole flood of Noah. It wasn't 40 days, it was 7 days. It wasn't the earth, it was only the cities of Mesopotamia. They have 14, meters wise, I think up to 14 to 18 meters thick of silt layers that they find that happened 5,000 years ago. Perfectly pure silt. There's nothing in them. There's no ashes in them. There's no clay in them. There's nothing but pure silt that covered that whole area. I wonder where that might have came from. That's physical archaeological proof. And so he says, all the stormy winds gathered into one with them. The flood was sweeping over the cities of the hash bushel baskets for 7 days and 7 nights. And after the flood had swept over the country, after the evil wind had tossed the big boat about on the great waters, the sun came out, spreading light over heaven and earth. That is the truest story of the flood that we have today. Kind of messes with your theology a little, huh? Now you think that they've been telling you the truth all along? When this document existed thousands of years before there even was a Hyksos people in Egypt? You say, well, that might not be true. Well, I've just proved to you that what they gave you wasn't true. It might not be true. Maybe we'll find some 10,000-year-old documents that say, well, here's a better piece of what really happened. But right now, folks, there ain't nobody in contention with the Sumerians for documented truth that exists. And we have clay tablets to prove it, that they're not just fallacious statements. And so, after the evil wind had tossed the big boat about on the great waters, the sun came out, spreading light over heaven and earth. Ziusudra then drilled an opening in the big boat, and the gallant Utu, the sun god, sent his light into the interior of the big boat. Ziusudra, being a king, stepped up before Utu, kissing the ground before him. Funny, because we just heard a guy today that a kindness was done, and I see this picture. Y'all won't see it like I do, but Ziusudra is thankful to the sun. That's why as soon as he drills a hole and gets out of the boat, first thing he does is bows himself in obeisance to Mother Earth, and he kisses her. That is an act of humility and thankfulness. And so, being a king, he stepped up before Utu, kissing the ground before him. The king was butchering oxen was being lavished with the sheep barley cakes and crescents together with something he was crumbling for him, juniper. In other words, what's he doing? He's putting the things together for a fire. Now, this is where you can these stories will tie together. When I shared with you the atrahasis, they give you one statement. It says, and Ziusudra was doing a sacrifice. What you get here is the information of things that went on around. The bottom line is that Ziusudra steps out of the boat, bows himself, slaughters oxen, has these cakes that they made out of barley. He builds a fire using juniper, and then the story picks back up again in the atrahasis. And so he was crumbling for him juniper and the pure plant of the mountains. He filled on the fire and with a, we don't know what, he clasped to the breast. Line 6. You here have sworn by the life's breath of heaven, the life's breath of earth, that he verily is allowed with you yourself. You there, On and Enlil, have sworn by the life's breath of heaven, the life's breath of earth, that he is allied with all of you. He will disembark the small animals that come up from the earth. The Asudra, being king, stepped up before On and Enlil, kissing the ground, and On and Enlil did well by him. We're granting him life like a god's. We're making lasting breath of life. In other words, we're imparting to him eternal life. Like a god's descend into him. So you get the essence of the Holy Spirit being put in Ziusudra, which brought eternal life. That day they made Ziusudra preserver as king of the name of the small animals and the seed of mankind, which he was. If it had not been for his obedience to Anki, there would be no humans, which is what Anki and what Enlil and On wanted. Just for a piece, because you may not know, if you've heard, it says, it uses terms like they made a rumble, talking about the picture of why humans and why a flood came. I've done some research about that, and it appears in context that what was really going on is people were starting to do the exact same thing that we live in, that many people are very frustrated with, which is the rabble. Okay, in one writing, it actually uses that term. It says the rabble of humans is starting to bother and take away the sleep of the gods. What's going on there is the negative vibrations that humans that are not pure create were reverberating into the cosmos, and they sensed it. It made uneasiness. It's what it is when you walk in a room and you instantly feel negative spirit coming off of someone. They're ignorant to it, but you feel it, and it's so strong it's not even funny. So it's quite amazing that it wasn't because people were sinning. In fact, dear friend, it didn't have a damn thing to do with anybody sinning. The problem is humans began to be humans, and humans have a propensity to cause drama and to whine and to complain about how bad things are and on and on. And they said, look, man, let's just kill these things. If this is what they are, let's get rid of them. We'll make some new ones. Where are we at today, dear friend? Just so you know, for any of you who might know a little bit, we are at the tail end of another cycle, which is going to bring another flood type situation. Most believe it is the pole shift that has been predicted by every Christian prophesier that exists. Edgar Casey being the ultimate one. Okay? We're already at 6 degrees. We only have to go about 10 degrees, I think it is more, 16 to 18 degrees, and this earth is going to flip upside down, and Antarctica is going to be up here, and we're going to be over there where Canada is, and where California is going to be down under the equator, and it's just, it's going to happen, and it ain't going to take very long for it to happen. And then the change will happen. Billions will die. People will go. All of that is where they got the writing for the book of Revelation. All of those metaphors can be tied into actual events that were anticipated by the Sumerians, because cycles always are correct. We are within the time frame of that happening right now from documents that are 5,000 years old and have been plotted on computers, and we are within a 20-year time frame of the end of this cycle. It is part of what the Aztecs said that everybody laughed at them about. That cycle that nobody believes happened started exactly when the Aztecs said it would. Everyone knows it. That knows anything about reality. It was the start. It wasn't a failure. It was the start of the cycle. Well, we can't live in thousands of year cycles. We don't know what 3,600 years of a cycle looks like, because we don't live 100 years even. So if it hasn't happened in 100 years, it must be a fake. And unfortunately, if that's where you're at, I'm sorry, there's no help that I have to offer for someone who can't see past their own self. But it is quite amazing that we then find these things out. And so, Zuisidra, being king, stepped up before An and Enlil, kissing the ground, and An and Enlil did well by him, and were granting him life like a god's. Were making lasting breath of life like a god's descend into him. That day they made Zuisidra preserver as king of the name and of the small animals, and the seed of mankind lived towards the east over the mountains in Mount Tillman. They do know where Mount Tillman is. It is a real place, so the Sumerians were correct about that. So all of those things are quite a mindful, to be for sure. And so I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant, because I think I've said a lot more than what there's a lot there that you can gain if you will go inside yourself and begin to speak. Sources is very, I don't know. I think it is the thinning of the veil. There seems to be a connection that is in purity and authenticity is easier to get acknowledgement that you're tracking true, or to get truth that's coming that this is or that isn't, and not to mention the synchronicities I've been seeing lately. Folks, the purpose of this always has been for us to be better. And that's why it's so, although I didn't totally and haven't really until necessarily recently, and thank God for me, for the Sumerians, because they brought the answers that no human I know has. They had them. They had the real ones. And it absolutely is quite amazing when you find out that everything that we've believed is not necessarily true. And not only that, everything that we've lived our life for, in many cases, was just a lie. And so, if you don't get it, if you don't understand it, then I hope for you that something will come and will enlighten and turn that on. And then, of course, if it doesn't, that has nothing to do with me. My job is to tell you to be a better person, to give you things that say, hey, it's not about this fake spiritual stuff over here. It's about the reality of who you are as a person. And if you can't find it in yourself to change who you are, then I could put you in the category the Sumerians talked about. It's not me putting you there. It's just me recognizing and then being able to place and spot. That doesn't help anybody but me, because then it allows me to know who to be around and who not. And the more that we find this authenticity thing, the more that I watch how Source desires separation in many cases. And so for each and every one of you guys, I'm not going to do the Enuma Elish. It's way too intense to get in, and maybe most of you might not understand that there were gods that lived and fought and created before there were Anunnakis here, because now we're talking potentially 300,000 and 400,000 years ago, but it was recorded. And so if it was recorded and it was important enough for the universe to record it, don't you think it's probably important enough that you might need to know something about it? If not, then you're very comfortable in modern society. I'm not very comfortable in modern society. I don't believe it. It's all fake. And if you choose if your heart is that it's not, then by all means, you should continue on that path. That's where you're authentic, at least. And so I hope each and every one of you will grab a hold of it. I hope you'll be blessed. It is a short time. There's many things going on and all of that, but the intensity of all of these things, and you can be sure if you have a question or if you are questioning any of this that I say, it's okay. There's many scholars that are doing the same thing, but there are also many scholars who are proving by the text that they are real. And so inevitably when we come to the end of thing, it says that Yeshua could do no great works because of the doubt and the unbelief. It didn't stop him from being blessed, and it didn't stop those who believed him from being blessed. It only stops those who don't believe. And so, in that way, it's kind of funny, how you are creating even the doubt you live in. If you can't find it inside of you, you can't find it inside of you. For those other ones of you who I like to talk to, if you find it inside of you, you better follow it because it's the truth. So peace to each and every one of you. Source is good, eternal, always, always, always working good, and learn to protect yourself from the bad of humans. Peace to you and shalom.